It's definitely a story of power and how you gain it and how you lose it and how you take it from people and how people give it to you willingly. And it's an incredible story
Of Stanley and Stella. They are married, and Stella's sister Blanche arrives to stay with them for a couple of weeks.
They told me to take a streetcar named Desire, then transfer to one called Symmetry, ride 6 blocks down and get off at Elysian Fields.
Well, that's where you are at now.
At Elysian Fields.
who's just kind of trying to find an oasis because her life has fallen apart. And so she's trying to find some sort of a sanctuary that she can just kind of go to fall apart in.
And throughout the whole course, there's a lot of tension, there's a lot of conflict. The once united Stanley and Stella start to stray a little bit, and you get a lot of conflict between Stanley and Blanche.
But in the meantime, she ruins everyone's lives around her. And Stanley doesn't take it well, and Stella gets hurt in the process. Every character gets hurt in the process, and they were living this really beautiful, simple life, and then Blanche, this huge catalyst, just came in and made everything explode.
That last act, Blanche's past catches up with her, and it affects every single one of those characters. There's an intense scene between Stanley and Blanche, and at the end, should I spoil?
For this particular production, because A Streetcar Named Desire is really, really, like, light is the character on stage for this show. Blanche hides from the light, you know, Mitch and Stanley, and sometimes even Stella kind of, like, use the light against her. So it's in of itself, lighting is a really important element for this play alone. I had to find a balance between naturalism and, you know, Blanche's crazy. Because Michael wanted it to still be naturalistic, to where we're in a house, we're in New Orleans, it is a time of day, but we also have these moments where we kind of pull into Blanche's mind, and a lot of the time that happens when the Varsuviana is playing. And so Philip and I, we really had to kind of pinpoint those moments, because Philip, as the sound designer, has to play the Varsuviana every time it says in the script. So I would try to key into some of those moments to try to switch from this naturalistic New Orleans house to Blanche's mind. Blanche has a lot of moments where she kind of is in her head and going crazy. Not really going crazy, but is trying really hard to fight against the crazy. And I tried to make those sort of uniform, even though they happen at different moments, you know, on different places, parts of the stage, at different times. But I tried to make them all sort of have like a unifying factor. So like during the scene with the Stanley Blanche confrontation, that really strong sidelight, I use that constantly, and it's on in every scene that the Varsuviana plays. It may not be very prominent sometimes, but it's always on. So like if you were to look for it, it would be there and you would know. So that's there. And then I have this really strong blue light that comes in when she's really, really panicking, like at the phone. When she's at the phone, you know, everything around her, that side light's on, and she's blue. When she's talking about Alan to Mitch, she's got that blue on and that side light in the back. And so I try to unify those moments, to have like a language of lighting, is a term that Sarah Maines coined. But so to try to help with storytelling, because lighting is such an important character on stage in this show.
Tennessee has graced us with individually 150 props to manage. So we do have like a props table backstage. We also have the prop cabinet. Luckily, Michael took a direction where actors were doing transitions during the acts, but during intermissions, we go ahead and go on stage and set everything. So it was a little bit overwhelming at first, but we've somehow found a very fluid way of managing it. So working on the paperwork exclusively for it, it just became a little bit overwhelming just because of how long the list actually was. When we got to the actual set, it became much easier because a lot of the props are stationary. We have the radio that stays there, the phone that stays there, all the glasses, and everything just basically has its place. You do have props that are brought in off the prop table or through the prop cabinet. So just because a lot of the props that were out of that 130 were taken away and put on the set to stay there, it made it a whole lot easier.
Oh. Woo! Rain from heaven!
During that scene, he brings on a bottle that he opens, and it explodes and rains from heaven. And then what we had to do was take that bottle. He moved it to the bureau, and then he goes into the bathroom with it, and we had to have someone there to switch it with an actual breakaway bottle, the same in nature, same bottle, same design, so that when he comes here and sets it on the table, it's the bottle that Blanche can break over the table. It's a breakaway bottle, so it's safe, but every night we have to sweep it up, and we even have Pablo sweeping it up during the next scene, just so it's safe for all the other actors too.
Sound. Go. I was really excited to call this show. I've been really excited for the show ever since I heard that it was going to be on the bill for this year. But it's more than I thought it was going to be, because typically with a straight play, you expect there to be lights up at the top of the scene, lights down at the end of the scene, and nothing in between. But there's a substantial amount of cues throughout the show, which I really appreciate. And it's a lot different. I called a musical over the summer where I had 400 cues and 90 pages. And this one I have around 150 light cues and like 90 sound cues and 103 pages. So it's a lot of fun calling it. And there's some really challenging moments. And it's the formula of trying to create what's happening on stage the way the lighting designer wants it or the way the sound designer wants it doesn't always match what the actors have decided to do that day. We extensively tracked where everything went. Like all throughout the rehearsal process, it was constantly me and Corbin, the deck manager's ear, being like, what's happening now? Where do we need to go now? What's going on? Where does this prop need to be? And it was a lot of prep work and endurance training of, I have 75 packs of cigarettes in my hand and I need to remember the exact location of each one of them. So it was just being as prepared as possible with all the paperwork we could have created, and so many lists and so many sticky notes and so many little things written on hands of like, move water to left. That doesn't make sense then, but later when you remember, it's perfect. It's just we had to be super prepared for any and everything that could have happened. The transitions within acts are actor driven. Because Michael didn't want to ruin the illusion of the play by bringing out people who are in black who like try to be invisible, but they're not at all. And so he had the actors drive all the transitions, and some of them are huge transitions. Like between Act 3, Scene 4 and 5, the movement of cleaning up an entire act's worth of trash that's just covered the stage, and then moving into Scene 5 where everything's supposed to be clean and pretty, is a huge transition for them. And we spent a lot of time during tech, outlining, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing this. While you're doing this, don't forget to do this. It was a lot for the actors to remember. But during intermission, the deck crew and the costume crew go out like little ninjas and throw a bunch of stuff on the stage and then run away because they have less than 10 minutes to do it. So watching the transitions every day is different. It really affects the way that I call my cues, bringing us in and out of transitions. There's no formula for it at all. It's just once I see that they're at a certain point in the transition, I call standby for the board ops. And then once they're actually doing what they need to be doing, we call them into a go.
Squat, 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 squat.